Hi, Jared here. Today we're going to talk about Adobe Illustrator. And I have to be honest with you, I am not going to do a full tutorial on Adobe Illustrator because there are many good ones online. Matter of fact, to truly understand Adobe Illustrator, you really should take an entire course like on LinkedIn Learning or formerly lynda.com or also on the web. But it takes more than just a few minutes to truly understand the intricacies of Adobe Illustrator. It's a vector-based drawing program. It uses objects and layers and colors and points instead of pixels and its own proprietary format that can be exported into other formats. There's a lot to go over. Let's do a quick little go over just so you can see what it is that you might want to play with or you might not want to play with, as the case may be. So I've opened up Adobe Illustrator and I'm going to start off with a welcome to Adobe Illustrator. What size file do you want? Now I'm going to start off with a letter sized file, and you'll notice instead of saying 8.5 by 11, it says 612 by 792 points because the default unit of measurement is not pixels, it's not inches, it's points. This can be changed, but it is the default unit because generally that's the way we talk about these things. This is vector based, which means that there's no actual correlation into the real world of pixels and inches unless we want to at a later date. The other thing I want to say is that while you can bring files into Illustrator, your best bet is always to start with a clean project. Make a brand new project. If you, and this happens to people a lot of times, if you open up a project or an image, and then you try to do certain things to it, those parameters might change. And for instance, I've opened up files before and I've been unable to add color because there was no color in the original file. So let's come over here and start with letter. I open up letter and hit cancel there. You don't need to see that. And so now let's come over to the beginning and look at our workspaces. When you launch Illustrator, it's probably going to look like this. This is what's known as the Essentials workspace. Personally, I'm a little old school. I like to see more information. I'm going to click on Workspace Essentials Classic, which is going to give me a lot more things to look at. On the left side of the screen, you're going to see a double toolbar. On the top of the screen, you're going to see a menu. You're also going to see this options bar where a lot of the magic happens. On the right side of the screen, you're going to see all these little icons, which are going to bring up their own little panels. And again, more panels. Panels and palettes and toolbars, oh my. All right. You're also going to see that we're dealing with Cmyk. That is the color space we're in. Illustrator thinks of color as if it was going to be printed. So it's going to be using a different color space than Photoshop, which is generally in the RGB color space. That doesn't mean you can't make good images to be displayed on the screen. It just means that everything's going to be, again, a little different. Now we're going to start off with the upper left-hand corner, which is the selection tool. By default, you always want to be going back to the selection tool. Couple things to note, if I click on view, you're going to see that we have smart guides turned on, which is going to allow things to sort of pop into place. We're all going to see where it says snap to point, which means it's going to try to allow things to pop together and almost jump into location to help you out. If you don't like this sensation, you can turn it off. So where are we going to start? Let's start off with something simple like a rectangle. I'm going to come over here and grab my rectangle tool, drag a rectangle, and then to make my life easier, I'm going to go back over to my selection tool. Notice that there's a letter V here. Every single tool is going to have a letter associated with it, which you get kind of used to if you use these tools. If you use these tools, you will learn keyboard shortcuts. This is a very robust program, and eventually you do start using both your keyboard and your mouse. Now, with this, I can pick up this rectangle and I can move it around. It looks like it's just a black outline, but it's actually not. It has what's called a fill and a stroke. The fill is the white on the inside. If I come over here and make the fill magenta, you'll now see that the fill is magenta. The stroke is black, but I'm going to make the stroke, let's say, something good, like a light blue, cyan. I can even change the width of that stroke to something large. So now we come over here and we can see that we have this box. I can always change this at a later date. I can pick it up and I can say that, no, I want it to be a purple stroke, that I want it to be a 3-point, and that I want it to be yellow instead, green or yellow instead. This little red line over here actually means no fill, which would actually truly be transparent. And I can pick up this and I can move it around, and you can see that it's trying to pop and lock into place in various spots. If I look at the properties, it's going to tell me that the object itself is rotated 0 degrees, which makes sense, and that it's got a width of 289 and a height of 215. I can make the width 300 and the height 200, and it's going to give me a different rectangle. Over here, if I were to click on this chain, it would link the two together, and now if I were to say that I want this to be 600, and I hit enter, now it's going to say it's going to be 400 because I have locked the aspect ratio together, the relationship between the width and the height. And again, sometimes you want them locked together and sometimes you don't. Notice when I drag the corner, it actually isn't locked together, but if I hold the shift key down, it is locked together. Holding the shift key down to constrain proportions is actually very common in a lot of programs. Regretfully, Photoshop has gone backwards with it. In Photoshop, I know we're in Illustrator, but in Photoshop, if you resize an object, it's automatically locked and Shift overrides. In Illustrator, it is not automatically locked and Shift locks it into place. Welcome to the confusing world of Adobe. All right, so we have our object and I move it over here. Again, I can resize it using any of the corners. And if I put my cursor outside of the corner, not on it, you'll actually see it turns into where I can rotate the object as well. Beautiful. Let's go back over to these menus. If you'll notice this rectangle here, it's got a teeny little triangle in the corner. That means if you click and hold, you're going to see a sub-menu where I can look at other things like an ellipse, which is basically a circle. Hold down the shift key and the oval becomes a circle. You'll also notice that it remembered where I left off in terms of colors and strokes and things, which is fine. And if I go back to my selection tool, now you're going to notice that my circle is on top of my rectangle. Let's come over here to my next favorite menu, which is the Layers menu. If I click down to expand it, you'll see the ellipse is in fact on top of the rectangle. If I click the rectangle and drag it over, now you're going to see that the rectangle is on top of the ellipse, because we are going to be looking at this from a layer perspective, looking top down, as well as an object perspective being top down as well. And everything is going to be about reordering and removing around these layers. We can come over here to the text tool, and I can say, hello. Isn't that great? I typed in hello. Highlight that word, and I can change it to any font that I want. And I can change it to any size that I want. And I can make it bold or condensed. And there you go. This is just one more object. You'll notice, by the way, that it doesn't have a stroke, but it does have a fill. So I can make the fill orange. I can add a stroke to it, by the way, and that would make it look like this, if that's the way you like it. Nobody wants to look like that, so I'll make it so that there's no stroke, and that'll no stroke, and that, let me highlight it first, make it no stroke, and it goes away. There you go. So this is the real basics of what we're dealing with here, objects and layers. The rest of this starts getting confusing into how you subdivide them. The neat part of it is that you'll see that things lock into place nicely. Again, you've got this numerical system for properties for basically the width, the height, and the location, which is very useful, and all these things. That's a starting point. Now let's say I want to save this document. Well, by default, it's going to save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. Demo Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator files, by the way, open in Adobe Illustrator, which is great. It's a very small vector-based file program. But let's say that you're ready to use this somewhere else. You want to export this to do this somewhere else. Well, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do export. And I'm going to do export as. And when I do that, it's going to ask me what kind of file format I want. Now, in this case, I'm going to choose a PNG file. Now, you're going to see there's a lot of files over here, and you're going to go, ooh, but I like JPEG files. JPEG files do not allow for transparency. PNG files allow for transparency, which means that if I were to export this, I would have my box and my circle and my text on a transparent background, which is a lot better than having a big white box on a background. So let's stick with PNG or portable network graphics for now. When I hit export, it's going to ask me a question. It's going to ask me several questions. You'll notice the first thing it does is it actually trimmed only to where I had material, which is very useful. It doesn't give me the full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It asks me the resolution, which I'm going to leave as to high, and it says that my background is transparent, which is what I want it to be. And if I click on OK, it's going to create that PNG. Now, if I did want the whole 8.5 by 11, if I were to come over here and export it again, you'll notice that when I do this, I could have said use artboards. If I call this demo 2, and click export, what you'll see then is that it gives you the entire 8.5 by 11. And then I might come over here and say, and I want a white background, and now I've gotten the entire screen that's in front of me. Now, this is the starting point. The problem with Illustrator is not the program. The problem with Illustrator is it's a very powerful tool. You've just entered a wood shop. You've got some wood over here, and you've got all these tools. I could show you how to use every single one of these tools, but I will not be able to show you how to make a cabinet. And so the design element overrides everything. What do you want to build? What do you want to see? If you can scribble it on a sheet of paper, then you can probably rebuild it in Illustrator. But if you can't visualize it on a sheet of paper, Illustrator's not going to help you. This is my starting point. It hopefully will get you through a couple of the humps. Maybe you want to use this program now. Maybe you want to work with a graphic designer. I'm not quite sure. But if you want to learn more, there are amazing tutorials out there. People much better than I am in this program who can actually walk through an entire course on using Adobe Illustrator. Anyway, my name's Jared, and I hope this helped a little bit. Thanks for watching.